Hey guys, we are back. It's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show, and I am honored to have on the world-renowned. Is that good?
I
The
don't know.
famous, the author,
Wow.
um, John Crossman is on the show today. Welcome, John.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you, Ted.
It's very good to be with you. You are always ahead of the curve on anything you're doing, and I think it's awesome what you've transitioned to and what you're working on. And
Yeah.
you do so much more than just real estate. So I want to get to all of that, but I definitely want to hear your origin story. People like to know a little bit about you. So
Sure. Share away. Is that okay? Is that
share
right?
away.
Share away. Well, my father was a pastor and civil rights leader, and so growing up in that household, it was an educated household, and it had a household that had a vision and purpose. My family has been working in the civil rights space for 50 years, and so that there's that.
Did not know that.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
absolutely, absolutely. My dad, going back to 1970, had the nickname the Bridge Builder, and that's why 3 years ago, Governor Rick Scott named a bridge after my dad. And if you're going down 79 Due near Buca de Beppo, and you see the rail bridge there, that's the Reverend Kenneth C. Crossman Bridge, and it was named because of his civil rights work. So,
I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
fascinating.
absolutely. You'll see the sign. You could Google it, and you can review it. Please
I
give it
will
5 stars.
absolutely do
Yeah,
that. So that definitely sets the tone for you and your upbringing and
yeah,
your
yeah.
journey.
Well, and what I would add to that is that purpose household, educated household, and how did my mom and dad say it? My dad really believed in the Lord will provide, which kind of translates into we don't have a really great budget. Like I say that. I mean, my dad was wonderful. One time, my mom did the grocery shopping, and then he saw somebody in need, and he gave them all of our groceries. Right. So there was a lot of that, and so I would say that in some ways gave me a little feeling of economic instability, and the reason why I bring that up is because I became as a young adult a devout capitalist. That I really wanted to work hard and I wanted to do well and I wanted to make money. And it wasn't that I was ever a materialistic person. I'm really not, but I really wanted more financial security. And what I learned through that is when you have some disposable income, and then you get interested in issues like civil rights or mental health or addiction or suicide awareness, things like that. It really helps when you can write checks. You can be more influential with it. So I saw my dad really influence things with like a shoestring budget. And so now I'm able to do similar things in a little bit different way, but I have a little more resources to help, which is
The basic bottom line, compassion and passion for civil rights
Mhm.
is there
Yep.
and helping people,
Yeah.
just different ways of doing it.
That's right.
And I think that's. But did you always want to be in real estate? What did you want to do when you grew up?
Um, aside from like cowboy astronaut, I very early on wanted to be in real estate. I didn't learn until my 40s that I'm dyslexic, and so when I was going through school, I always respected school, but it was hard for me. And so I knew I wanted to work in an area that worked hard and that I could make more money. But I really gravitated to real estate pretty early on because of the tangibleness of it. Like, when I was in college, I took a finance class. Portfolio management was still a little bit abstract to me. But when I took real estate classes, that was really focused. So I have a degree in real estate from Florida State University, and I decided on that a long time ago, and it's done well for me.
It's fascinating because you're one of the few people who's come on. I don't do a lot of research, but I knew enough about you because I've known you for a while.
Oh yeah,
A lot of people don't come on that have the real estate degree.
yeah.
A lot of people who've been in real estate, that wasn't even an option. Honestly, I'm dating myself, but that really wasn't an option for me. We had a real estate class, but certainly not a real estate degree. So you're unique coming in. So your perspective is not only a passion for real estate, but you actually have the classes and the education. Did it make a giant difference on how you started your business?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I also have a CCIM, which people call the PhD of real estate. But if you have a bachelor in real estate from FSU, which is one of the best programs in America, it's the equivalent of having a CCIM. So I had a really good academic practical training. I'll also add the University of Florida has a master's in real estate program. And I think that's the #1 graduate program in America. So we're very fortunate to have a state that we have such academic resources for that. But absolutely, the core skills And I still use them. My favorite professor from college is still at FSU, and I still remind him there's things he taught me in the classroom that I will use this week. So
Isn't that
that's cool.
fascinating?
It is.
What class was it?
So he taught appraisal 1 and appraisal 2, and so what that goes to is score of valuing properties. And I still to this day, if you've picked any kind of commercial property, I have a really good sense of how I would value it, and understanding that basics is really important when you're trying to figure out, is this a good time to buy or to sell, and get your brain around that. So very helpful.
What about the market now? What are you seeing or feeling? I ask anybody who's been in real estate, touches real estate, this question.
Mm-hmm.
What are you feeling right now, and what are you seeing in the short term coming up?
Well, first off, unprecedented, right? Like, there's so many times through different recessions, you can kind of look at a previous recession, and this one's just so weird because on one side, the banks are still healthy, right? So you can still get a loan, so that's positive. Yes. On the negative side, part of it's perception. When people feel like the world's ending, I keep saying it's like the zombie apocalypse or something, like that gets people negative. Like, for example, with retail in my area that I love so much, you get some people that overly down on it, too strong, overly down on it, or putting it on one bucket. So there's those issues. Short term, I think it's going to be bumpy. It's certainly going to be bumpy. We're going to see how this all shakes out. If you were a retailer that back in February, you didn't have your house in order, you had too much debt, you weren't well structured, you're gone. On the other hand, great retailers like Publix, who are well financially healed and really know their customer, I think they actually end up gaining market share, and they certainly gain in the emotional side of being so helpful to people when they're going through a rough time. So it's going to be a squishy time. You're going to see some people expand and some people retract. We're going to lose some somewhat of household names, and then we're going to see some other ones really ramp up quickly.
I agree. I feel like my biggest concern, my biggest giant concern area is small business, and it floors me that everybody was waiting for the grand reopening, which we've started to do, and yet the word on the street is that it just either it's not enough, or because the general community says they're ready to go out, but they're not yet. It's caused this continuation of the quarantine, and so I'm hearing from a lot of small businesses that they're open, but they can't get the people in the doors.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you my favorite story through all this stuff is we have a Great Dane. Her name's Pepper, and she's a wonderful dog. She weighs 110 pounds. She's a big dog.
Wow.
And so we take her to Magic Pet in Baldwin Park to get her doggy daycare, spa treatment. She gets that kind of stuff. Well, the guy that owns it, his name is Samir, and Pepper loves him. And like, when I have a picture of the two of them together, she hugs him and kisses him and adores him. So I went to see him because I dropped off Pepper, and I went to go pick up Pepper, and I walked in and I said, "Oh, hey, how much do I owe you?" And he said $45. And I was kind of fumbling with my wallet, and Pepper was running around, and he kind of said, "John, just give me 35." And I was like, "Come on, man." And so I put out the 2 20s and a 5. And he looked at me and he put his finger on the 5 and he slid it back over the table, and he said, "John, we all need to help each other."
Wow.
Samir, Magic Pet, that is a great local business.
It's amazing.
Right? Get it. Another example is like Sato Sushi, and I joke about this, but so true. Sato Sushi, great California rolls, and then they started delivering the California rolls, and they weren't delivering before, and now they'll deliver California rolls and rolls of toilet paper. I have bought almost all of my toilet paper from Sato Sushi. And a quick side note to that, them selling those rolls of toilet paper are actually a violation of Publix's lease that Publix is not enforcing, because Publix is supporting small businesses. How about that?
I love it. I feel like it has been a reset, restart. And if you're of the right mindset, I know mindset's not everything, guys, especially for you guys that are furloughed or unemployed, but I can tell you that it helps. And if you're of the right mindset, there's opportunity here. There's a lot of opportunity to do something new, to try something new, to expand in a different way, to really really evaluate what you're putting your money into and where you're spending your energy and your time.
Can I mention one quick thing about that?
Please.
Ted. So one of my things I do is I'm the chairman of the FAMU College of Law Dean's Advisory Board. And the FAMU College of Law, located in downtown Orlando, was built to deal with civil rights issues. And so with the terrible tragedy in Minnesota and the terrible tragedy in Georgia, there's a lot of people, bringing up that topic, and I appreciate it, but I'm always trying to say, how do we move that to actionable steps? So earlier today, a young, super bright African-American attorney called me, and we had been playing phone tag, and she said that she'd been furloughed, and so she's probably going to go back to work for this major law firm in Orlando, but she had this little gap of time. And she said, "John, do you need some help with the Family College of Law?" I was like, "You are awesome." And I said, "Here's what I want you to do." I said, "I will buy lunch starting next week, once a week for an entire year. And for you, me, and maybe the new dean of the Family College of Law and different leaders in the community, so we can talk about race, we can talk about justice, and talk about how we can work together. So let's invite the chief of police, let's invite the mayor, let's invite Charlie Gray, or somebody like that, or you, or whoever, and let's document and let's go. Let's take 2 weeks off, and the next year let's do 50 lunches with 50 people and work on that." So she's furloughed. She does not have a job, but she's taking that time to work on an important topic.
That's so good.
Not to whatever, but to go out there and say, let's do something and be productive, right?
Because it's easy to go down the rabbit hole of being unproductive. Mm-hmm. It's easy to just kind of sit there tweeting, and what you were saying earlier, there's lots of passive ways to pass the time. Mm-hmm. But it's been such an opportunity to really think differently, to approach things differently. And I feel like the people who have taken that reset seriously are definitely ahead of the game as we come into whatever this new opening world is. Sure. Talk about a little bit about, or a lot about, your book. What was the process of writing a book? I've always wanted to write it. There it is, Career Killers, Career Builders. Love the cover. Yeah. Let's talk about the process a little bit, because we have a lot of people, when I have an author on, for whatever reason, they get shy and they don't ask the question. But their number one question is, I've got an idea, but I have no earthly idea who to get it to, how to go through the process. So what was yours like?
So mine was different. So I'm going to tell you my story, and then I'll give some advice for you and for others. So I'm dyslexic, right? So I'm not a writer. My form of communication is through public speaking. And I've been giving guest lectures at colleges for over 20 years. And so about 8 years ago, I can't remember what it was, I was going to give a speech at the University of Florida. And I decided that there's lots of topics that lots of business leaders can talk about. And I decided I wanted to go to someplace different, maybe that's rare to talk about. And I wrote a speech called The Top 5 Ways to Get Fired and the Top 5 Ways to Keep from Being Fired. And those top 5 we're talking about sex and drugs and alcohol and addiction and mental health. And what was crazy is after I gave that speech, it became the most requested speech I gave. Like all the time, people stopped asking me to talk about real estate or shopping centers, but talk about that. So I decided that I wanted to make that into a book. And my motivation was as a tool to help people. And so that process was hard for me because, again, I'm not a great writer. So what I did was I hired a ghostwriter. And what I would do is I would read the chapters, record it, and I would send it to him, and then he would type them into the written word. And so that was the collaboration that made a great team. Let me say that.
The ideas are yours. The ideas are yours. The passion, the voice, it's your voice.
Yeah. It's just really grammatically correct, right? It's like, but so let me say this though, is that if you are a person who really is good at writing and grammar and punctuation, all that kind of stuff, it's a wonderful time because you could, do the book. I had a publisher. I went through an actual publisher, but you can self-publish very easily, and you can sell it through Amazon, and that's a great thing I recommend to people. So what's the catch? The catch is marketing, and marketing is so hard. And when I got the meeting with my publisher, look, I don't have a master's degree in English. I haven't written a bunch of stuff, but I have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. I have 5,000 connections on Facebook, and so forth. That's what they liked. I had distribution channels, and so my book has hit #1, and it's sold really well. But I had that system. So I would tell people if you have the skill set, you just got to be disciplined and write it, and that's great. But tell me, selling a book is something totally different. Totally different. You got to be shockingly aggressive about selling a book.
So talk about the book, because it's Career Killers, Career Builders. Mm-hmm. So obviously there was a reason why you started talking about careers What was the impetus behind the actual title and the book outline itself?
So I graduated from college at the age of 21, and I looked like I was 15. And so all throughout my 20s, I had success, and yet I looked really young. And so a lot of times parents would reach out to me. They wanted me to talk to their college kids and stuff like that. So that's where the kind of the career part of it is. I will tell you, though, and you've experienced this, everyone watching this has experienced this, where you see someone so crazy talented, and then they do something so horrifically stupid. And the worst case scenarios would be an Anthony Bourdain or a Kate Spade or a Matt Lauer, right? I mean, we see these people that are so successful, they're so brilliant, they have money and power, check all the boxes, and then their life is ruined, their career is ruined. Look, I'm a lifelong diehard Florida State fan and a Dolphins fan, by the way. And when Aaron Hernandez, a Gator Patriot, took his own life in prison, somebody told me, I was in a meeting, and I felt devastated. I just felt devastated that the loss of that life and talent. And if you've watched the documentary on him, his whole life is heartbreaking.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So why did I write it? I wrote it because I wanted to dig into, when I wrote look at the title, The Killers is in that red, kind of a blood red. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being late to work. I'm not talking about, whatever, dressing inappropriate or some weird thing like that. I'm talking about the things that end talented careers. So my target audience is achievers. My target audience is people who you look at and you're like, gosh, in 10 years, they're going to be running this country and really helping them. And I'll tell you one quick aspect of all of that is sometimes when you look at these young kids, they're so great. Some people might think that the problem is going to be that they are going to feel failure for the first time, and then they're going to like freak out. I have not experienced it. I've not seen that. What I've seen is young people that have so much success, and then the success doesn't fill them, and then they get into bad trouble.
Yeah,
and that's sort of the reality. So I want to help people. Look, I had my own journey. I suffer from clinical depression. I've been through a lot of different treatment for that, and it saved my life. And so I always try to tell my own story. I had a young man that I mentored for years that I thought the world of, and he took his own life. So I want to go into hard places. Or when we talk about civil rights, like I want to talk about race, and I want to talk about race not with an agenda politically or whatever, but really in a productive way. It's a hard conversation. And
have you been on Vanessa Eccles' show about a podcast about that yet?
I have.
You would be perfect. I will make the intro. That would be.
No, we did. I did it. I did her show.
Oh, you did.
I did. Yes.
Yes.
I love Vanessa, and she and I are very much on the same page. And so, if you want to hire me as a consultant in real estate, the best time to hire me is because you either have a project or a company, and your real estate needs significant change. That you have a hard thing, and that's why you bring me in. If it's everything's great, you don't need me. If you want to hire me and my other company, Crossman Career Builders, as a consultant, hire me as a company because your company is really struggling with race or mental health or some hard subject, and you don't know how to get the pieces together. Or if you as an individual, you're just going through a hard patch. And a lot of times when people are achievers, there's not good systems around them. Like we lost Michael Jackson and we lost Prince. Why did we lose those great talented people? In part because the people around them didn't necessarily want them to get healthy, because if they got healthy, maybe they'd stop singing, right? So, and then I also think, I come from a heavily background of faith, and it's still important to me. But, a lot of pastors, they're not trained to be counselors. They're not medical doctors. They're not, so they can fix some things, but they can't fix your teeth, right? Like, right. So we have to have other resources out there. So I love talking about real estate. A lot of people can talk about real estate, but I also want to be the business guy that talks about uncomfortable, hard stuff when people are ready to talk about it.
So what are some of the career builders? What are some things, because I think people, maybe they don't know, but I want to focus on some of the positive. What are some of the things people can do to build their career, to take that achievement to the next level, or that goal, or their business? What are some of the things that they should be doing, or some advice that you give right off the bat?
Okay, I'm going to give you a bunch of different easy ones, okay?
All right.
Get an annual physical. Get a physical every year. And have a primary doctor, and I don't care what your age is, have a physical. Why do I say that? because if you ever have a health issue, you have a baseline, right? And you have that as a resource. Okay. Know a professional counselor. Doesn't mean you need to see a professional counselor, but if you have that as a resource, that's really, really helpful, because if you're getting kind of I don't know what I'm doing here, to help deal with that. So have them on deck and ready. You need to really seek out a mentor relationship. And that is very easy to say. And I define this with students of what is a mentor relationship and what is something else. And so I always start by saying, what is charity? And I always tell students, charity is giving, expecting nothing in return. And charity is typically during a crisis and a hard time. Relationships, however, are a healthy giving and receiving, and relationships last forever. So what I always say to young people is, are you seeking a mentor charity relationship or a mentoring relationship? You know, if your goal in life is you want to see people that are wealthier, more powerful than you, and your goal is you want to take from them, that's not going to last long. But if you see yourself as equal, like, you know what, I met with a CEO and they gave me some advice. And so I mowed their grass, you know, or I went in there, I gave them a great review, or I liked their show on Facebook, or, you know, whatever, you know, give something back, right? That's important to me. It's like, Ted, you're so nice to give me this time. I'm gonna promote you, because I don't want you to see me as charity. I want you to see me as a relationship. Yes. And I think that's a very hard thing in the mind.
Why is it so hard? Why is that? I agree with you. I think that's one of the hardest things for people to wrap their heads around. Ted, you know so many people, you have so many relationships. And listen, it's work, guys, but it's so critical. I want to have those relationships because that allows me to have time for true relationships that are on the give and take, versus relationships where I'm always giving. And I think you open yourself up. But why are people challenged by that word?
I think they're challenged by that word because of the construct of how we view power. That if you view yourself as powerless and someone else is powerful, like, I'm a defender of billionaires, right? Like, you know, I said one time in an interview, I'm a self-made millionaire and my clients are billionaires. And if people look at billionaires and are like, well, they should be giving away their money, and they should. Guys, no, they shouldn't. They're human beings, and like, they have power, but you have power too. And there, some of those billionaires' lives are miserable, and your life, it could be wonderful because your family loves you and you're not addicted to drugs and things like that. So I think it's about power. If you look at all human life as having dignity, right? That the gentleman in Minnesota, that video was so painful to watch because he was not being treated with dignity, and he and I are equals. He deserves dignity. On the other hand, you know, again, a wealthy individual that's living in wherever they choose to live, they deserve dignity too. And so if you have that, then you see, like, wait a minute, this person's giving to me. It's healthy for me to give back. I took my 2 teenage daughters to my nephew's house to hang out together with their cousins who are in their 30s. And my daughter, my youngest daughter at 15, she texted me. She said, Dad, should we bring something to give to them when we go to the house? And I said, yes. I said, text your cousin. She texted me and she goes, well, he says, don't bring anything. I said, we're bringing something. And why is that? Because if we're going to go into someone's home and they're going to make us a meal, we're going to bring something, because that's who we're going to be, right? And I've met wealthy people that have told me that no one's ever offered to buy them dinner, right? Like, they always get stuck with a check. That's terrible, right? That's not the life I want to live. I want to look at myself and how to improve. And I want to look at others as all people as having dignity and self-worth. And I think that makes for all a healthier society. So the answer is power. It's not understanding that all people have power and all people have dignity and worthy of self-respect.
Dignity is so important, because I feel like we talked about this on a last show or the show before. People are carrying around all of this stuff that they haven't dealt with, whatever that baggage is, and yet they don't find a way, either a mentor, a coach, a counselor, someone, to figure out how to unravel that. And so they're always carrying it around. And so everywhere they go into it feeling like they're not dignified enough. They're not deserving of any kind of respect. I have a lot of people that I've coached or consulted in that area, and it's staggering how many people that impacts on a daily basis.
You know, I would put this in my own. I agree with you. I'm thankful for you. In my brain, I look at it like, for most of my life as a Christian, I would think, okay, where am I sinning? And I need to repent. I need to stop doing that. As I've gotten older, what I've more reflect on is where am I wounded and where I need
Yes.
healing. That often if I'm doing something sinful, however you want to define that, the reality is it's probably because there's something unresolved. Then when you choose to go down that path, you can lead to a much healthier life, but the path itself is extremely painful. And I will tell you, as I've gotten older, I've been blessed to have all kinds of friends that I really appreciate. The ones that I really enjoy the most are the ones that have been through recovery. My friends who have been through a drug addiction or alcoholism, although I hate that they had to go through that, those friends tend to have the best wisdom through many situations. They have more to give because they've brought skills in and they can provide those.
They've literally bared, most of them have bared their souls. It's gotten down to the rock bottom of rock bottoms.
That's
And
right.
they've worked their way up. So I agree with you. Most of the friends that have had addiction issues, they seem to have the words of wisdom from experience, which is
Right.
very, very enlightening. It's not just a book they read. They
Right.
lived it.
Well, and if we were to get deep in the conversation of race, right, like racial reconciliation, one of the things I try to explain to people is if you had two brothers living in a household and one brother had a severe traumatic thing happen, the other brother didn't, and then many years later they're in their 40s and the brother had traumatic experience, starts to talk it out, that's a hard dynamic. The brother had a traumatic thing, needs to express it and needs to be heard. The brother that didn't have it, well, it's hard for them too because their worldview of their perfect childhood and understanding that it's a painful conversation. So when we look at race today, we have many white people. I think the majority of people I know are they're not racist, they're respectful, good people, and yet they see African Americans who are still hurting and suffering, and rightfully so, right? So when some of these things happen, like Central Minnesota, it's aggravating to white America, but it's painful in Black America because it pokes on a whole series of things. So to have that community, how do we have community healing? How do we have a community conversation? That's a lot of skill involved to work that through, that we all get to a place of healing together.
I agree. I think it's timely. I think that is a great way to sort of segue into how do people reach out to you? How do people buy your book? What's the best way for them to get some more of this insight and wisdom from John Crossman?
Well, that's kind. First off, it's available on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Books A Million, Google. I mean, it's very easy to find the book, and it's now available audiobook as well. So that's an easy place. And then my website, I do public speaking, keynote speaking. We do consulting, and if you go on, there's a form you can fill out, and any way we can be helpful. And I'll tell you something funny. I had a woman message me through Facebook, and she wanted some career advice, and she actually said she wanted to hire me, but I quickly was like, "You don't need me. You got this." I mean, she just kind of needed like a little pep talk. I was like, looked at her resume. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're perfect for what you're pursuing. You do not need, just go do it." And I'm cheering for you. So yeah, those are the best ways to get me, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Oh, Retta Peoples, I was just thinking of you. Retta Hussein, what's up? She has also been on the show, and we have had very, very fascinating conversations
cool.
about. She's amazing. Cool. She said two great guys. John, thanks for sharing your heart with us. That was really enlightening. I want you guys to go out, look at his website, get the book. We need more of that mentorship, giving and taking and giving. We have to have more of it. And I think that's definitely something. I'd love to have you back on. I'd love to have you. I'm going to do a show on some of the topics with race. Retta doesn't know it yet, but of course she's at the top of my list, as is Vanessa and Hank. And I'd love to have you come on, John. So
anytime. I'll always be.
Thank you so much, you guys. John Crossman. All right, have a great one. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Mwah to everybody. Thank you so much, John, for all you do.
Thanks, Ted. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.